Yo, Julius, this is your girl Raven Chapman, the Omen. Just want to give you a big shout out here from the UK. Ring IQ, you're the man. Thanks so much for your support.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. In men's heavyweight news, reigning unified heavyweight champion Fury-Usyk says Tyson Fury is a crazy man. I want to fight in 2023 after injuries heal. I want the WBC title. It was captured by the Gypsies, some kind of king. We don't know what Tyson has in his head. Everyone knows that this is a very crazy guy. I would really like this fight to happen next year, Usyk said during a press conference on Friday. Fighting Tyson Fury in December is impossible. First, I have old injuries. Second, I just don't want to box in December. I haven't left the gym for half a year. I want to be with my children and with my family. Boxing can wait for a little. Next year, I think it will happen. Usyk expanded on his sentiment towards Fury in a separate interview with Sky Sports, saying, "He wants to fight against me. He wants people to talk about him. He hasn't retired yet. It's just a game. I'm leaving boxing. I'm coming back. He still wants to earn money," said Usyk. "All the fanciful comments against me. He probably thinks it will touch me, but it won't. I take it like the crow arguing with the wolf sitting from the tree. The reality is that if the crow was close to the wolf, she would keep silent. Tyson Fury loves to talk. All of that blah, blah, blah."
He does love to talk.
5 days ago, Tyson Fury's own promoter, Bob Arum, stated that the fight's not happening this year. In all likelihood, it's going to happen next year, and they're looking at February 11th or the 18th, somewhere in the Middle East. We talked about that in my previous video. It seems that Usyk needs a little bit of time to recuperate because he just fought.
He spent all that time in preparation for the Joshua rematch, and now he wants to spend the rest of the year with his family.
Along with nursing old wounds, recuperating from old injuries, he is a cruiserweight that has moved up in weight. After all, it takes a toll on a man's body.
That was about as straightforward an answer as you could get.
Which is what I've always appreciated from Usyk. He's a no fuss, no muss, no nonsense kind of guy. He goes in there, does the job.
We watch him.
You don't have to deal with any of the arbitrary nonsense we get from his rival, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, who responded to these comments.
Usyk, middleweight. You say you want the WBC, and it's held by gypsies. It is held by gypsies. It's held by the Gypsy King, and it's held tightly, grasped tight. And all road leads to a 7-foot behemoth that will absolutely destroy you, middleweight. Middleweight, you will get smashed to bits. You say you wanted to fight me after you beat the bodybuilder. Called me out on television. And now you're being a little bitch pussy boy. Running, hiding, saying you've got injuries. You ain't got no injuries. You had a sparring contest. Get out and fight in December. You let your mouth go. Now let's back it up. See if you can back it up, middleweight. Doesn't matter if it's December or April or August next year. The outcome will be the same. I will obliterate you. I'm a 7-foot, 20-stone behemoth, and I will destroy you, middleweight. Find your balls. Come see me. Bitch.
5 days after Bob Arum lets it be known that the fight's not going to happen this year, here comes Tyson Fury, 5 days later, demanding that the fight happens this year.
And this is all coming from the same guy who said unless you give him $500 million, there won't be any fight at all.
You really can't make this stuff up. The crux of it is, in terms of character, who has it and who doesn't, while Tyson Fury is a character, he's greatly lacking it as a personality trait, whereas Usyk, he's a man of principle, a man with character, and if he says that the fight's not happening this year, it'll happen next year, you know you can trust him. You know that he means business because, characteristically, he is a no fuss, no muss, no nonsense customer without turning the entire situation into a circus the way Tyson Fury would.
He's retired, he's not retired.
He'll fight for free, but he needs $500 million to fight Usyk.
And if he doesn't get it, he's gonna stay retired.
But he's demanding also that the fight happen before this this year is out. He's demanding that the fight happen in December.
Guy's a fucking cornflake.
He's a serial contradictorian. He's one of the most wishy-washy guys I've ever seen in this sport.
Whereas Usyk is the opposite. He's a consummate professional.
He's not a character. He has character. When someone with character says something, you tend to believe them. So if Usyk is saying he needs a little bit of time to recuperate because he just fought, I can believe him. I can believe Usyk and what he says a lot more than I can believe Tyson Fury.
A lot more than I can believe a guy who tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs.
And his explanation was it's because he was eating wild boar testicles. Why on earth would you be eating wild boar testicles and just all of that?
Former WBC heavyweight champion Rahman,
one of the only men to ever defeat Lennox Lewis, the great Lennox Lewis in his heyday, Hasim says everything Fury can do in boxing, Usyk can do it better. While Fury has a significant size advantage in the bout, Rahman is giving Usyk the edge with his crafty boxing style. I think Usyk is the best heavyweight that's currently fighting today, Rahman told FightHype.com. I think Fury imitates Usyk, and he's had a lot of success with it, fighting plodding, slow heavyweights who are not really boxing like that. Everything Fury can do in boxing, Usyk can do better. Both fighters are undefeated and regarded as the best boxers in the weight class.
if you're talking about the actual boxing, the actual nuts and bolts of it, Hasim is right.
Fury doesn't have a better jab or throws better combinations than Usyk. He doesn't have better feet than Usyk, and he's not as coordinated per se. He's just more coordinated than many of the big men in the heavyweight division in terms of nuts and bolts boxing.
I mean, I've said that many times. The fact that Fury is as big as he is, fighting like a little guy,
being able to, at least his range of motion and his movement, his maneuvering ability, it does give him an edge over most kludgy, slow plodding heavyweights in the division, but he can't hope to outlittle the little guy. The main advantage that Fury has over Usyk isn't his boxing, it's his size.
and that's the out that he has in this fight. He's not actually a better boxer than Usyk, he's just bigger.
Usyk has been tabbed by many as one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the sport. Rahman agrees with that position, explaining that Usyk's knowledge of the sport will play a big role in the contest. With heavyweights, it's different. Most heavyweights are lazy, and they don't have that work ethic. With smaller guys, it's a little different. With Usyk's boxing IQ, that's going to play a big, major part. A lot of time, the smaller guys' IQs kind of cancel each other out, Rahman said.
But Fury's best bet to beat Usyk isn't to try to outlittle the little guy. It would have to be to use his size and mow him down.
Fury having very good punch resistance and powers of recovery, natural size advantages over Usyk. His best bet to beat him wouldn't be to box him, it would be to run him down. And most people feel that's what he would opt to do.
So if it were that easy to do it on size and size alone, someone else would have done that by now.
It hasn't happened yet. Will Tyson Fury be the one to bring this scenario into fruition? We won't know until next year if and when these two boys meet, if and when these two boys fight.
Because Bob Arum already said that fight's not happening this year.
And Usyk said the same. He wants to spend the remainder of the year with his family, nursing his old wounds and recuperating from his existing injuries. His amateur and professional exploits likely take a toll on his body, especially now that he's campaigning in the land of the giants, him not being a giant himself.
And like I said, I won't give him any shtick for it because I don't think for a second he's afraid of Tyson Fury, and that's about as straightforward an answer as you can hope for.
As straightforward an answer as you can get. A lot more straightforward than what you get from Tyson Fury, who retires and he unretires and he'll fight for free, but he needs $500 million.
Tyson Fury tries very hard to be a character, whereas Usyk is a man of character, a man of principle.
Usyk himself responded to Tyson Fury's video message
With a series of images he posted to his Instagram account, he appears to be laughing.
because what the hell else are you supposed to do to that stuff? He's referencing a fight from 16 years ago when Usyk was a teenager?
What are you supposed to say to that? It's so arbitrary, so childish.
Don't get me wrong, I think Tyson Fury did a good job of getting under Vladimir Klitschko's skin, getting inside of his head and living there rent-free. I think he did the same thing to Deontay Wilder before they even fought, and certainly afterwards when he laid those 2 beatings on him.
But Fury's banter, his candor, his particular brand of mind games, I don't really think they'll have that same effect on Usyk.
I don't. With Vladimir, he managed to catch him at a very opportune time towards the tail end of his career when he had become somewhat complacent. Having defended his titles successfully so many times, he lost his edge, lost his killer instincts a bit. With Wilder, it was a little different because Wilder's an egomaniac. Wilder's a guy who put himself on a pedestal, so it was that much easier to take him down a peg.
Wilder got exposed.
When it comes to Deontay Wilder, Usyk has now declared that if a fight with Tyson Fury doesn't happen, he would also be interested in facing Deontay Wilder. We'll see. I don't want to make empty statements. I could still box with Fury or with Wilder, but that's where my interest ends.
He's not going to get Wilder in the ring.
Usyk at this time is a network and promotional free agent. Free to go wherever he wants to go so long as someone can offer him something. Now Deontay Wilder, he boxes exclusively on PBC affiliated networks. His next fight's going to be on Fox, and before he was boxing on Fox, he was boxing on Showtime. Hard to imagine that Fox will offer Usyk something substantial enough to bring him over when the word around the campfire seems to be that this might be Fox's last year in the sport of boxing. And we know how Deontay means to cap off the year. He's going to fight Robert Helenius. You think about Showtime, and Showtime, they offered Canelo Alvarez a lot of money to box on their platform, but Canelo Alvarez is the biggest draw in boxing in this country. Usyk isn't. In spite of what he made in his last fight in Saudi Arabia with Anthony Joshua, I don't think Showtime's going to put up a substantial enough offer to bring him over. And even if he is mildly interested in fighting Deontay Wilder, I don't think he's going to go over there for just any offer.
The PBC are thinking to themselves, why offer this guy all this money to come over here and box Deontay when all we've got to do is put Deontay in safe fights and wait?
Wait for Usyk and Tyson Fury to settle up with each other, and if Usyk wins, he'll retire, he'll vacate his titles, and Wilder can pick it up that way. Pick it up safely. Pick up the green belt that he used to hold.
They can keep him busy until then. They'll keep him busy with Helenius, and if he beats him, they'll put him in there with Andy Ruiz if he wins this weekend.
If he doesn't, maybe they put him in there with Ali Demirezin, who just battered Adam Kovnowski. Essentially, I don't get the sense that the people at the PBC, or Deontay Wilder himself, are all that interested in an Usyk fight. To them, in this part of the world where he fights,
America,
there's no commercial value, at least not enough for them to risk it. Look at what happened when they let Tyson Fury hop over the fence. Look at what that did to Deontay Wilder's career. You think they're in any hurry to do that again? Let some other guy hop over the fence.
No, they're too busy pretending they're still interested in a Joshua fight. I don't think they're interested at all in an Usyk fight.
No matter what public statements are issued out, when it comes to that fight, I'm not holding my breath. Deontay Wilder may be a lot bigger than Usyk in terms of height and reach, but he's lacking in a lot of other areas that would make that a very risky fight for him. For starters, Deontay Wilder's not a volume puncher. He's not prolific at all. He doesn't throw punches in bunches. He spends the majority of a round looking to land the right hand, and by now, everybody knows that.
Including Usyk.
He's very elusive, and he's got better feet than Deontay by far. He is a more coordinated fighter, whereas Deontay, he's often off balance.
When he's trying to move, more often than not, he's off balance. When he sets his feet,
it's a dead giveaway that he's trying to shoot the right hand. It's a tell is what it is, and by now the word is out. Everybody knows.
Including Usyk, who'd stepped just outside of Deontay Wilder's lead hand, his left hand.
Fire off a straight left hand of his own. Usyk being a southpaw, leading with his right in order to set up his left.
Stay on the outside of Wilder's jab.
Fire the straight left hand down the pipe, or get off right hook upstairs, maybe a right hook to the body.
Like I said, Wilder's a lot bigger than Usyk, but he's not actually a physically imposing fighter because he doesn't impose his size.
Doesn't step into his jab and throw punches in bunches, crowd the guy and out-muscle him, out-hustle him. No, he spends the whole round trying to get off a single shot, the straight right hand.
People will tell you that he's landed that right hand on a lot of those guys, but
Usyk ain't those guys, and those guys, they ain't Usyk.
If you think Anthony Joshua's got a bad gas tank, look at Deontay Wilder. He gassed out after one round the last time he fought.
In the third Tyson Fury fight, he started out all right, throwing jabs up top, jabs downstairs, and they were actually landing. By the second or third round, this guy was winded, breathing with his mouth open.
Wilder ain't got the cardio for a fight with Usyk or the coordination.
He's not a prolific puncher, and he doesn't have the punch variety or the punch selection, doesn't have the work rate for that assignment.
Would be an easy day at the office for Usyk.
All Wilder's got is a puncher's chance. That's why I don't expect to see this fight come into fruition in spite of Alexander's expressed interest.
Deontay Wilder's easy work for Usyk. Are you kidding me?
In a nutshell, I don't think Usyk is in Wilder's future, but the winner of this fight, tomorrow's fight between Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz.
Depending on who the winner is, I think the winner will be in Deontay Wilder's future, so long as the winner is Andy Ruiz.
I think that's the plan. Match Deontay Wilder with Andy Ruiz should he win tomorrow's fight.
Pretty much.
And when it comes to tomorrow's fight, what am I expecting to see? Well, neither one of these two boys have looked all that great in their previous outings. Andy Ruiz had to go through the gears with the over-the-hill, very over-the-hill, Chris Arreola. Luis Ortiz had to pick himself up off the canvas 2 times at the hands of the rather unremarkable Charles Martin in order to secure the W, secure the knockout. When it comes to both boys,
Neither have looked all that impressive, but
I think I'm going to have to go with the former unified champion Andy Ruiz on the premise that Father Time may have finally caught up to old Luis Ortiz, who some speculate isn't actually in his 40s. Rick Glacier, boxing insider Rick Glacier, seems to think Luis is actually in his 50s, and based on how his legs looked the last time out,
I don't think he's got the foot speed to manage the distance, box at range, and keep Andy out of his sweet spot.
I think what we're going to see from Andy Ruiz, who doesn't have the best feet himself,
He's not the poster child for foot speed either.
well, he may have enough to catch up to old Luis Ortiz, and I think what we're going to see is Andy Ruiz attempting to catch and shoot as he closes the distance, closes the gap on Luis Ortiz in order to get mid-range to inside and land hard shots. Andy Ruiz, he does still have fast hands mid-range to inside, though he has to get there for that to come into it. Against a guy who could be anywhere between...
Like I said, some people think Luis Ortiz ain't actually in his 40s. Some people think he's actually in his 50s.
The old saying goes, power is the last thing to go. In boxing, power is the last thing to go, but a fighter's legs are the first. And Luis Ortiz looked on unsteady legs the last time I saw him against Charles Martin in tandem with his punch resistance waning.
And I don't think he takes the best punch anymore. He got his brain jostled 2 times by Deontay Wilder.
He got his brain jostled 2 times in his last fight when he got knocked down.
Doesn't really look like Andy's trying to cut down the pounds and become a smaller, more streamlined version of himself anymore.
I think he's abandoned that campaign, and I think that might be beneficial for him, as he was a lot more solid, took a better punch when he was a more portly fellow than when he attempted to trim the fat.
I think Andy's gonna catch up to Luis Ortiz. That's what I think.
Andy never had the fastest feet, but he doesn't need to have the fastest feet to catch up to today's Luis Ortiz, who I don't think can manage the distance and keep this guy out. Luis's best punches are his straight punches, and I think that Andy's going to catch and shoot, find his way into the pocket, and perhaps score a knockout. So I am going to go with Andy Ruiz to win tomorrow's fight by way of knockout or technical knockout after the midway point.
He packed on the pounds for this fight, and that's going to add something to his power, add something to his punch.
Ortiz is about to find that out.